Okay, Year 10, first of all, very well done for all the work that you did this year, up to and including the exams. There was some really good stuff in those exams. I marked some excellent answers from a lot of you. You should all be really proud and pleased with how you've worked. Make sure you maintain that work ethic for the rest of the year, and make sure you keep it in Year 11, because it will serve you very well in your final GCSE exams. Now, what I'm intending to do is produce some videos over the next couple of weeks and months talking about the areas of the exam, the Year 10 exam that you've just sat, areas where you had difficulty, whether it was a topic or how to answer a particular question. As I say, I'll produce some videos that will hopefully clear up some of those issues that one or two of you were having, including this one. Okay, today's video I'm going to be talking about Gallipoli, or the Gallipoli Campaign. Okay, that was a topic that a few of you seem to have one or two issues with. Okay, the Gallipoli Campaign. So that's what I'm going to talk about. As I say, Gallipoli, or the Gallipoli Peninsula, is in Turkey. Okay, here is a map of Europe. It's a bit blurred, but here's a map of Europe in 1914, and Gallipoli is here. Okay, I've got a better map that I'll show you in just a second. Okay, but Gallipoli is here. Okay, now a bit of context for you. In October 1914, Turkey, here, the Ottoman Empire, Turkey, had joined the war on the side of Germany and Austria-Hungary. Okay, so Turkey, or the Ottoman Empire, just here, had joined the war on Germany's side and Austria's side. Okay, so Turkey controls this body of water here, known as the Dardanelles Strait. I've got a better map for you, which I'll get up for you now. Here it is, zoomed in. Okay, here is the body of water known as the Dardanelles Strait. Okay, Turkey controls that. Okay, there's Gallipoli. Turkey controls this. Now, so what? I hear you say. So what? Turkey have got control of this body of water. Well, what does it mean? Well, as you can see here, the Dardanelles Strait joins the Black Sea, which is on the border of Russia. Okay, now Russia, as you should be remembering, are on Britain and France's side. Okay, so Russia, our allies, and Turkey, obviously Germany's allies, both have access here to the Black Sea. Okay, so if Britain or France wanted to get supplies to Russia, which they did, they found it incredibly hard. Okay, because in order to get supplies to Russia, they had to send ships up the Dardanelles Strait. Well, if Turkey control that, Turkey aren't just going to let Britain and France and their ships through, particularly given that they are allied with Germany and Austria, who are, enemies of Britain and France. So whenever Britain and France wanted to get supplies to Russia, they had to get it up here, but they couldn't, okay, because Turkey control that body of water, the Dardanelles Strait. Okay, now Russia were desperate for help on the Eastern Front. They were really struggling with the war on the Eastern Front, because they were having to fight Germany and Austria-Hungary all by themselves. At least Britain and France had each other to fall back on. Russia were dealing with the German army and the Austrian army all by themselves on the Eastern Front, and as I say, they were really struggling. And they needed supplies, okay, in terms of both weaponry and food, okay? And so they needed Britain and France to bring them these supplies, but as I say, the only way Britain and France could get them supplies was going through the Dardanelles Strait, which was impossible at this point. So the plan for the attack at Gallipoli was put together by none other than Winston Churchill, who, as we know, went on to become Prime Minister of Britain. At this point, he was First Lord of the Admiralty, okay, which basically means he was in charge of the Navy. Okay, so Winston Churchill in charge of the Navy, First Lord of the Admiralty, and he puts this plan of attack together. Now, the plan was, I should say, to bombard the Turkish forts. I'll get that map back up. To bombard the Turkish forts, here we go, to bombard the Turkish forts here at Gallipoli along the Dardanelles Strait, and then send in ground troops afterwards to take control of these forts along the Dardanelles Strait, which would make it easy for Britain and France to get their ships up there, because they wouldn't be getting bombarded or attacked from either side. Okay, that was the plan. Okay, so we'll clear a way for the Allied ships to get through and supply Russia with food and weaponry. Okay, that was the plan. Well, what happened? What happened at Gallipoli? Well, let me tell you. On the 19th of February 1915, British and French troops, Navy ships, bombarded the coastline. I'll just get that map back up so I can talk you through it. So British and French ships bombarded the coastline here, destroying some of the Turkish forts. So far so good. However, the fleet, the ships, then attempted to go up through the Dardanelles Strait, but 3 battleships were blown up by mines which killed 300 sailors, and the rest of the fleet just turned around and went back. They retreated, okay, which was probably a good idea. Okay, so it was then decided that in order to stop this happening in the future, you had to land ground troops here who could take control of those forts and then clear away the mines. Okay, because it was the mines that were the big problem here in the Dardanelles Strait. So once we've taken control of the forts, we can then go and clear the mines away. We can't clear the mines away now because these forts will start shooting at us and attacking us. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to take control of this coastline, we need to clear the mines away, and then we can get the British and French ships up through this strait. Okay, so the plan is we'll get some ground troops to capture the forts and clear the mines. So on the 25th of April 1915, Allied troops, mainly British and Anzac troops, remember they are Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, so it's mainly the British troops and the Anzac troops. Remember that they are part of the British Empire at this point. We own Australia and New Zealand at this point. So mainly these troops landed at Gallipoli. So they land here. Okay, they land at Gallipoli. Okay, they were poorly prepared, very poorly prepared. They weren't prepared properly for this attack at all. The troops who were used, most of them had very little or even no experience of attacking enemy beaches. They hadn't practiced it and they had no idea how to attack a beach, because it's very different to attacking well, a trench or you know, normal fields or what have you. Attacking a beach is very different. You've got to land on it for starters. Okay, so that was the first problem. They didn't really know how to attack an enemy beach. They were also given out-of-date maps, which didn't help, because, you know, the map would say, well, here is something, and it wouldn't be there, or something else was there that they weren't expecting. So having out-of-date maps really didn't help either. And many of the beaches were directly below cliffs. Now, I've talked about this in class. The problem with that is they'd land on the beach absolutely fine, they'd look up at the cliffs and there would be a load of Turkish troops shooting at them. Okay, so they were getting shot at as soon as they landed on the beach, which makes it very difficult again, because, you know, a lot of them were getting killed, or they couldn't just get off in an orderly fashion because, again, they're being attacked, they're being shot at. And the Turks, on the other hand, were very well prepared. Not only were they waiting for the troops on top of the cliffs, between the original attack where the British and French ships tried to go up the Dardanelles Strait and this attack, remember it was 2 months, that was in February when the ships tried to get up the strait, and now we're in April. In those 2 months, the Turks had actually strengthened their defences. They'd made the defences an awful, much stronger. Okay, and as I say, they were waiting for these troops. They knew it was coming, so they were ready and waiting. And as I say, they could quite easily gun down the British and Anzac troops when they arrived. So the Allies managed to land at what is now known as Anzac Cove. Okay, so they landed here, Anzac Cove. I'll just hold that a bit closer so you can see it. They landed at Anzac Cove, but they never actually made it off the beaches. Never. That's as far as they got. That's as far as the invasion got. Anzac Cove. Okay. The British and Anzac troops were forced to dig trenches in order to protect themselves. They're getting shot at, so how are we going to defend ourselves? We'll just dig some trenches and, you know, get in those. So not too dissimilar from what was going on at the Western Front. So they were pinned down and couldn't, as I say, get close to the forts. They couldn't move off the beach. Okay, so from the word go, it was a massive failure. Okay, because the idea was we'll take control of this coastline and have nothing to worry about. Now they can't even get off the beach. Okay, they can't even get to the forts, which is what they were trying to, you know, destroy or take control of, so they could clear the mines. So it was a failure, absolute failure. No denying it was a failure. And they are pinned down until December. Remember, the original invasion takes place in April. Until December, they are just waiting there in their trenches. They can't go anywhere. Whenever they try to, they just get gunned down. So here comes really the only successful part of this invasion, and it was the retreat, the evacuation. Between the 10th of December 1915 and the 9th of January 1916, over 135,000 troops were evacuated. And as I say, this is a successful part of the campaign, albeit it is the evacuation, it's the running away, if you will, but it is quite successful. The evacuation took place at night because obviously the ships couldn't arrive and just take the troops away during the day because they'd get attacked and shot at by the Turks. So it took place at night so the soldiers could escape without being seen. And they very cleverly laid down blankets so they could disguise their footsteps, so the footsteps wouldn't be heard, so the Turks wouldn't hear them moving around. Also, very cleverly, they timed some machine guns to fire occasionally at the Turks, so it made the Turks think, oh, you know, they're still attacking us, they're not running away. So it was very, very cleverly organised, and as I say, a success, the evacuation. Too bad the rest of it had been a complete failure. So some statistics and numbers for you that I've written down here, just so you've got some stats and numbers to mention in a question, if you've got another question about it in the actual exam. 480,000 troops took part in this invasion. 48,000 were killed. So 480,000 troops took part, 48,000 were killed. 1 in 10 soldiers that took part in this campaign were killed. Okay, significant numbers there. 204,000 were injured. Okay, so nearly half, 204,000 of these soldiers were injured. So those stats alone, you know, show you just how much of a catastrophic failure the original attack was. But not only that, many of the soldiers became sick because the conditions, you know, weren't good. They were very dirty, and you know, imagine trying to camp out on a beach in a trench that you've dug. It's not the most hygienic conditions. So people caught and died from typhoid, dysentery. Well, they got diarrhea, which, you know, is a symptom of dysentery anyway. So that, you know, that was awful for them as well. It killed a lot of them or made a lot of them ill. Or even if, you know, you have it in a mild form, it's not really conducive for good fighting. Okay. Russia, again, is not helped in the end. The whole idea with this campaign is we're going to take control of the Dardanelles Strait and then we're going to get supplies to Russia. Well, that never happens. So the original aim of the campaign is never met. Okay, Russia never get the help that they needed and wanted, and, you know, face the prospect of starvation. And as we know, Russia ended up having to pull out of the war in 1917, or Russia are pulled out of the war in 1917 by the new government, the Bolshevik government. The only reason they take control, or one of the reasons why they take control, I should say, not the only reason, but one reason why they take control in the first place is because the Russian people get sick of the war. They get sick of the fact that they are losing, and the people back in Russia are starving as well, because most of the food is being sent out to the soldiers. So there's a revolution in Russia in 1917, partly brought about because of the war, or the war is the catalyst really for this revolution. So again, maybe if the Gallipoli campaign had worked and we got supplies to Russia, maybe that wouldn't have happened, and maybe Russia would have stayed in the war. Who knows? And another failure of the Gallipoli campaign is one of the intentions was if we supply Russia, if we get them food and the arms that they need, and, you know, strengthen the Russian army, then Germany will actually have to move a load of troops off the Western Front to the Eastern Front to deal with us, you know, delivering supplies to Russia, and to deal with the much stronger Russian army. Well, that never happens. Germany don't have to move any troops off the Western Front to the Eastern Front. They just leave the troops where they are. So that's another failure. You know, the idea is we'll take some of the edge away from the Germans on the Western Front. But, you know, that isn't met either. So Gallipoli as a campaign is a failure. The only success comes from the evacuation. Okay, so that's some of the key detail about Gallipoli. Okay, that's probably about as much as you need to know, particularly for that 6-mark question that you had on the Year 10 exam. That was about as much as you needed to know. Remember, it was explained 2 key features of the Gallipoli campaign. Well, there's quite a few features that you could have mentioned. Okay, so hopefully that's cleared up Gallipoli for you a little bit. As I say, I'll be doing some more videos over the next couple of weeks and months in relation to some of the questions that you were asked on the Year 10 exam that you struggled with. But as I say, hopefully that's cleared up a few issues for you, and I'll see you very soon.